though, it wasn't that bad. I mean, we were looking at lower 70s. Those numbers still above average, but it felt just absolutely beautiful out there today. 73 our high in Odessa, Midland, 72 in Wing. Some of those mid to upper 70s a little bit further to the south once you get along I-10. But big picture, these numbers looking really, really nice for this time of year. Again, just a little above average. Should be sitting in the mid 60s, but really haven't seen much of that so far this month. And I don't think we're going to be seeing a whole lot of that moving forward either, at least not for the time being. Now, those winds are still looking pretty calm here in the basin. Off to the west, though, that's where we do have a little bit of an issue. Guadalupe Pass, winds getting up 29 plus miles per hour, getting close to that 30 mark, and into tomorrow, get ready. It's going to be another gusty one out there, at least off to the west. That's where we're looking at those numbers picking up again. You can always tell when you start to see a whole lot of color coming in on our hour-by-hour forecast. I mean, some really strong winds, and we're going to be looking at 15, 20, 25 mile per hour winds, and that's in the basin. Off to the west, that's where things will really start to get pretty gusty. That's why we have another high wind warning in effect for the Guadalupe Mountains until tomorrow evening. That's what we're going to be looking at, and elsewhere, well, high wind watch also in effect until tomorrow, and actually this one extends all the way until Tuesday, and that's going to be in effect for Eddy County down into the Trans-Pecos, Davis Mountains. Again, very strong winds expected over the next couple of days. Not like we haven't had a lot of this. Last week we saw some serious winds, even had a little bit of issues with some of that dust out there. Here's something else we might have some issues with: pollen. Tree pollen getting up there, and it's been up there for a little while. Starting to see things blooming out there. Might not be spring yet, but, well, let's be honest, it's felt like spring for a while, and that's why we're starting to see some of those numbers climbing up there. Thankfully, grass, mold, and weeds still sitting on the low side, but there are going to be some issues moving forward as we make that transition into March. Now, right now, we do have some cloud cover out there, not something we've seen a lot of recently, but plenty of those clouds all across the viewing area, especially down to the south. But really, you look outside and you haven't seen a lot of sunshine so far today. Definitely not seeing it now, not just because it's night, but because of that cloud cover into tomorrow. Those clouds sticking around for us, and this is actually the case across much of the state. We're seeing this band of clouds stretching all the way off to the east, and it does look like we'll keep some of that as we move through the next couple of days. Still some clouds in the forecast as we move into tomorrow. Start to get some of that moving in by tomorrow afternoon and evening and into Tuesday, but no rainfall, not quite yet at least. It's still going to be looking fairly dry over the next couple of days, if not a little bit warmer. Overnight lows, not very low. We're looking at mid to upper 40s, 50s off to the north. Tatum 50 degrees, Seminole 50 as well. And those afternoon highs slowly starting to creep back up there, getting into the mid to upper 70s, 78 in Andrews and 78 in Big Spring. Along I-20, still looking pretty warm as well. Mid to upper 40s for most of us, 50s there in Crane, and just barely below that 50-degree mark in Big Lake into tomorrow morning. And then those highs, upper 70s, lower 80s for most of us in the Central Basin. Trans-Pecos, even warmer still, a lot of 50s along and south of I-10. And then for those afternoon highs, here we go, getting up there, mid-80s tomorrow in areas like Bakersfield, Iran, Sheffield, Dryden, all looking at 85-plus degrees. Down to the Davis Mountains, we do get a little bit of a chill there in Marfa and Valentine, but for our afternoon highs, still getting back up there. 70s for most of us, and then getting into those 80s down along the southern border. Next 2 days looking pretty warm out there, and actually we're going to see a chance to get close to a record. Not quite there, but it's really just because the record's a little bit lower for us, and that's really the only reason we'll be flirting with it. You can see these numbers nowhere near as extreme as what we had last week, but still 78 tomorrow, 80 on Tuesday, and then we drop back down into the 60s Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Those numbers right around average as we make that transition into the start of March, and then warming back up by the weekend. It's some great weather. If we could just get a little bit of rain in the forecast, we'd be complete. Unfortunately, it just doesn't look like it'll be the case.